About when you were young and everything?
Well, I said we used to, Daddy and Mama, and they used to help people all the time.
Right.
And you helped anybody, your neighbor, and you helped anybody that come along that needed help.
Mm-hmm.
I can remember that very well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And but they don't do that today.
No.
Of course, it's a different situation because there's so many people trying to harm you today.
People on drugs and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
What are some old stories you can remember that are funny?
Oh, goodness. Oh, there's a lot of stories I can remember, but I don't even know where to start.
Well, just tell me something.
well, let me see. When we were young, my sister and I, of course, didn't have any brothers, and just the two girls. And we had to do girls' and boys' work because we lived on a farm, and we milked cows. And so,
how old do you think you were when you started milking cows?
Probably around at least 9 or 10, somewhere along there. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Can you remember who taught you to milk a cow?
Well, yeah, my daddy.
How many cows did y'all milk?
Well, but of course that was earlier. But we sold milk to Swift and Company. That was part of our living, and that, of course, we had gotten on up a little. Then maybe I'd say around 11 or 12 or 13, somewhere along there then, that we milked so many. We milked about, one time we milked about 18, and we had been 24. And of course, in the mornings, milking cows, you had to milk them twice a day, 7 days a week. And so we would, in the mornings, we would get up and before daylight, when we'd go to school, when it was time to go to school, that season of the year. And we didn't have electricity. We didn't have electricity till I was in the 8th grade. So we'd light a lantern and go take it to see how to get to the barn, to milk. And then we'd milk and come to the house. Mama would stay at the house and cook breakfast, and Daddy, of course, and me, with the three of us, would milk the cows in the morning. And we'd bring the milk to the house. We had about probably two 20-gallon cans, or 10-gallon, two 10-gallon cans maybe. Anyhow, big, tall can, whatever. And we would come in, and we'd have to change our clothes and get ready for school. And then we'd have to we'd eat our breakfast. And on the way we'd catch a school bus down at the road, at the house. And we'd ride 5 miles to school on the school bus. And we did all of that before 8 o'clock, because you went to, they took you in school at 8. And, but we would, on our way from the house to the road to catch a school bus, we'd pull the milk down there in a little red wagon, that we had a little Red Rider wagon, I believe it was. And we'd set that in it. We'd just pull it down to the wagon and just leave the wagon there with the cans in it of milk. And then the milk truck would come along and pick it up and take it over to Swift and Company. And but we'd catch a bus and go to school. And then when we'd come home in the afternoon, if we had a lot of times we had a ball game that night. And so Daddy would be in the field maybe or something, or be doing something like that. And we'd go, those old cows, they're not going to come up until milking time by themselves. But we'd have to milk them early. Vernon Lou and I'd have to milk them early because they were, we had to get around and and go play ball that night.
Well, how'd you get them to come to the barn or whatever?
We went and drove them. We went over and drove them to the barn. And then we had to feed them. We had to put, Daddy had one of those ground silos, where you just dig a hole in the ground, out and put bracers around it and everything. And that's where he stored the silage, that they fed them with. And so we'd roll that wheelbarrow out on that plank to that side and fill it up. You had to put feed in the troughs for them and milk them. And then we'd get ready and go.
But you had a barn to milk them in, didn't you? You had a barn?
We had, and they each one had a stall, and each one of them had a name. Daddy named them all. And they knew which stall was theirs. And you put them in, they'd go in their stall.
So if you opened the door, all the cows would come in and go to...
No, we didn't let them all in at one time. We let some of them in at one time, and then
But they'd go to a certain stall.
And then we'd put the rest of them in. But we learned to do that, and then we'd have to go to the house and get dressed and eat our supper if we eat anything. And sometimes we'd have to go on a bus somewhere to some other school to play ball. So we had to go early most of the time.
Did your parents have a car then?
They had one, yeah.
But do you remember when they didn't have a car?
Oh, yes. We used to have wagon and mules when I was real little.
Now,
I remember them.
Where did y'all live when you were milking cows? Where did you live?
We lived out in the country between Cairo and Beasley.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Same place where the home place is now, but it's all grown up now and everything. I don't even know who owns it now.
Do you remember the days it was raining and you had to milk, or it was real cold? Did you wear gloves to milk?
Oh, no.
You couldn't wear gloves.
You couldn't wear gloves because you had to milk. You can't milk in a glove. I couldn't. We couldn't. But we survived. We never complained because it was a way of life back then. That was during right at the tail end and after the Depression.
So your mother basically stayed in the house and kept the home fires going and cooked the meals, and y'all got out and worked?
Well, she worked too. She worked in the field. She helped Daddy work. She worked in the field too.
Y'all would have a big garden?
Yes, we had a big garden, and that's why we didn't suffer as far as food was concerned during the Depression.
Did she can, or did she have a freezer?
No, you didn't have a freezer. And you didn't, at one time, we didn't can because the meat that we had, you know how we had cold enough weather back then for a long period of time where you could season stuff that you kill like meat, hogs and beef, and you could put it, let it season, I guess they call it, where you'd...
Did you hang it somewhere?
Yeah, you had a smokehouse, they called it. And you'd hang it in there, and that's where and it kept. I mean, it was okay.
I can remember that.
You used a lot of salt on it. They used to salt it down until the sugar cure came along, and then Daddy started using the sugar cure on it, which made it a lot better because it wasn't as salty.
What about vegetables? How did she keep vegetables?
Well, you had dried peas and dried butter beans and things like that until they started learning how to can all of it, and they had to can some things back then.
But when you say dry, did y'all raise them and then dry
Yeah,
'em?
sure.
How did you dry vegetables?
Well, you don't. I mean, you couldn't dry carrots and all of that those kind of things, but you could dry, and you could dry fruit. You dried apples and peaches. We had apple trees and peach trees, and you could dry those fruits.
Well, what did she do to dry it though?
Well, to dry sometimes they would dry on the vine nearly.
Oh, really?
The peas and or you can then else you had to just lay them, in bags or something and let them in the sun. But now peaches and apples, you had to slice them and lay them out on some tin or something.
That's what I always thought about tin. You lay them out on tin.
The fruit, your peaches and to dry them and boy, they were really good.
Did y'all have a tin roof on your house?
Mm-mm.
You didn't have a tin roof?
No, I'm thinking. Oh well, we may have. Yeah,
Way
probably
back
when the first house. Yeah.
Because I can remember being in somebody's house and it was raining so hard we couldn't hardly talk to each other.
Yeah, we did then, but this after Daddy built the one that I was really raised when I got a little older in. It had just a regular roof on it,